right, just like that, we're live.
We're
We're not
rolling?
really live, we're recording.
Oh, okay, there we
It's so
go.
funny, I appreciate you reaching out, because I can't remember, you phoned originally, and you weren't in my phone number, and I said, oh, Patty gave me your details. I'm like, oh, okay, right on. So I had a talk, and you came down for coffee at the office, and then I immediately phoned another good friend of mine. His wife's named Patty. I said, do you know this kid? Nope. I'm like, okay, different Patty.
Yeah, checking out, trying to figure out who it is. Yeah, no, my aunt, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I was just chatting to her, just catching up kind of thing, and our 10-minute phone calls turned into an hour pretty quick. And she's like, I think you should chat to David. David would be a really good person. So yeah, she kind of sent me your contact info.
Oh, no, I'm glad. I don't know her too well. I know I met her through Tiffany Scott, and just, yeah, Patty seems like a remarkable person, and I've told her, like, I'm so proud of her, how she's got that gym going, and she's doing good on the social media, and yeah, just, I'm very proud of her.
She's one of the smartest risk takers I know. She's a person who just outworks most of those around her, and she humbly does it. And she's not afraid to better herself and pursue things that do the same thing. It's really impressive. She just leads with love, everything she does, right? So, I mean, that put us together here today, two people that she appreciates.
But even the fact that she's looking out for you from all the way up in GP, like, I like that.
Always, man. And she does it different than most people. I know some people like to give me the tough love, and I'm harder on myself than I think anyone is. So she recognizes, too, that she doesn't need to even guide or direct or force her advice at all. I usually gladly ask for it. Or she just provides me resources, right? Like yourself. Here's a good resource for you. Here's somebody who I think is excellent. Why don't you connect each other and see where it goes? Did she text you beforehand?
No, not at all. But honestly, it doesn't even matter.
No, but she puts that ball in my court, right? And she just has the belief in me that, like, he's dialed in, he knows what he's doing, he knows what's best for him. I just need to be here and support him in any of the small ways I can. And yeah, she does it excellently, and I mean, she's awesome. She's one of my biggest supporters. No,
I'm glad to hear you say that. Like I said, I don't know her too well, but you know what? Little bit of time I've spent with her, she seemed like a pretty, quiet person. Doesn't say a lot, but when she speaks, you kind of listen for sure.
It holds a lot of volume, and like I said, it's just that leading with love. She's got a very gentle touch, and just the way that she phrases things and cares about others packs a lot of compassion with her. So that's why she's in the industry she's in, right? With clients and dieting, and she just works with people trying to better themselves. And she does that every day, and she does it better than most. And then she just helps people figure out what's best for them.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about what brings you here to talk to me today. Are you from Calgary, or what's your story?
Well, you told me we were going to have a good, so that wrapped me in pretty quick. I grew up there in northern Alberta. So, obviously where Grand Prairie is, right? You've spent some time up in that region. Peace River?
Of course, my sister was up there for a few years.
Okay, there you go. So my mom's in Peace River, and then most of my family's in Fairview.
Okay, right
So everyone in my family pretty well farms or works some sort of oil and gas or a trade. And then, I moved down here to Calgary when I was 14 in 2014. Shipped down here. I basically played hockey here and went to high school. And then after that, I went to university in Lethbridge.
Right
So
on.
I've kind of been, the last 10 years of my life, I've been in and out of Calgary, just with school and summer work and that kind of thing. So
Did you go to school in Lethbridge? Because they got a campus here in Calgary as well.
they do, yeah. They run a business campus here in Calgary. They got one in Edmonton as well. I went to Lethbridge, got the full experience.
Okay.
Hung out with my buddies down there, made some great relationships, met a lot of good people, guys I still spend time with today, which I think is the bigger thing about university. Like, there's definitely the school factor, but it's the life skills you learn. And the best one you can walk away with is a network. And it's not just a business network. All these people that you spend time with, they're going to grow into professionals in their own careers, right?
For sure.
So it's just building a network of people that, eventually if it grows into a professional relationship, that's awesome. But if they're just friends, that's the important thing.
So what did you take in school?
I took a bachelor's in management.
Okay.
So it's very similar to an administration, a B of A, but the only difference is they focus a lot of the exterior classes on management studies, working in groups, working in teams, how to best do it efficiently. So that was kind of the separation that I liked about the degree. And then I majored in accounting. So I picked the nice, boring backbone of business.
Oh, I'd say it's probably one of the more better ones you could take. It applies to every industry. Everyone's got it.
That's exactly what it is. It's an old formula, right? I find it's very similar to farming in business in the sense that it's never changed, not drastically, right? Obviously, there's new standards and procedures to come out. But at the end of the day, it is the backbone of an industry, backbone of a company, right? It shows their financial stability and just the ins and outs. It's important. It's basically every transaction that happens over a year for a company, accounting records that, right? Whether it's tangible or not, it hits the books.
So what drew you to that compared to what your family, whether it's farming or construction or trades or whatever?
I had an opportunity to go to university. I worked hard enough in high school, and I had a vision of ending up in a management role one day. So I thought how best to do that, and I knew university was the first step. Accounting was funny. I talked to an aunt who owned her own seismic company, and I told her, like, at first, when I was in grade 12, I'm personable. You know, I find, like, I make relationships well. I thought marketing was going to be a good idea. And she said to me, she's like, if you want to market, just market. You don't need a marketing degree. And I later found out that she's just talking about the skills it takes to build relationships. A lot of people sometimes have that already. What she was getting at is go take something more formal. And I chose accounting because there's so many routes you can go with it in the technical schooling. It's a walk right into the CPA program, right? CFA, you can also get accepted quickly, CBV. Most designations, accounting is an easy in, more or less, just because it deals in a lot of the same fields and practices that they're looking to grow. So that was my choice with accounting.
So where do you want to go in your career? Because accounting is such a broad discipline in terms of what it could apply to. Do you want to stay on the energy side out west? Because again, like what do you find yourself drawn to?
I like the idea of building tangible projects. That's why the oil and gas industry very much interests me, as well as the construction industry. And they're very intertwined, right? You see the energy sector touching so many different industries from renewables to oil and gas, right? Very similar with construction. Anytime you're building tangible assets, they're involved, right? I like that because you're seeing a project come to fruition, right? It's not like I worked in a public practice firm for a while, and it's good. It's a lot of really good technical skills and knowledge. You grow your business acronym and profession, but the thing that's missing is you're not getting hands-on, tangible experience, right? You're not seeing the ground floor of a project come to fruition. You're seeing that with books, right? I guess you could call that a project in itself, but it's not something behind you here that's being built, right? Which is really neat when you're working with pipelines or you're building a structure downtown, right? Calgary's getting a new arena. You know, being able to throw that on the resume saying that you were a cost controller.
For sure.
Right? Like, that's awesome. And it's something that I'm going to be able to spend time in when it's finished and really enjoy that I was one of the members that made this happen.
No, I like that. Like I said, people usually think about accounting as like operational type role because again, everyone thinks about it as keeping books and the day-to-day stuff. But if you can get into the project world, whether it's pipeline or residential or commercial or whatever, I hope you'll find it very rewarding. Because I would definitely encourage you to do it because it's really exciting. Would you ever consider going out to the field?
100%. Yeah. That's the goal. I think I'm going to find greater happiness there, at least in an early stage in my career. There's so many different master's programs now too, right? Like you're in one yourself. That was the thing. I came out of the U of L, Lethbridge, and I was like, I have a one-track mind, get my CPA. This is the only route. I stepped into Calgary and seen different designations, and I'm like, there is so much more in this world than just one route.
Oh, 100%. Have you had any exposure to working in the energy industry so far?
Directly, no. Service companies, absolutely. You know, I've done books for all different types, finished all their financial statements, right? Just lots of anyone that runs their own consulting company. I've done stuff like that. I've done some larger audits as well. But I've never worked directly in industry for a company yet, and that's the goal. I did do it in the construction industry. I jumped on with a home builder on a fixed contract, so that was really good. I learned a ton there because I had a ton of autonomy. They didn't have a lot of just accounting processes set up yet, so I got to do a lot of that. Change things as we go, automated budgets in Excel, right? So you could just take all your transactions for that week and you just click a button, copy and paste, and it would upload directly to the budget.
Awesome.
Yeah, so doing things like that, like automation is so cool. And setting it up directly in something like Excel, it's very hands-on. But there's so many different softwares nowadays that will more or less help you do it more efficiently.
Like, for sure, 100%. Like, I know, you know, it's a bit of a slower time in the industry right now, but if you are actually willing to go to the field, it definitely will open up some doors for you, where it was more of a common thing where these, you know, young engineers would get out of school and they kick them out of the field for a few years. I'm not seeing that as much nowadays, so if you're open to it, I think I would definitely encourage you to, not just for credibility and experience, but I think you might like it, Dune.
I completely agree, right? My whole family is blue-collared workers, more or less, and I think I slide into that well. It's nice to be able to put on a nice shirt and live in the white-collared world. I think it's really important. But on the same token, you see a lot of people that start their own businesses. A lot of them weren't the most educated people, right? They were the guys that went into the field, worked their way up, did extremely well, learned whatever their industry or company was very, very well, and then decided to do the exact same themselves, but better, right? Put their own spin on it, put their ideals on it. They were confident enough to take that risk, and then they hired, you know, the educated people to run their companies. I've seen this in many different examples in different industries. So I just have a different view on education now. I think it's great, but experience is irreplaceable.
For sure, and I would say it's evolving even right now with so many kind of online programs from all different schools, and it's different. The brick and mortar concept of going to school, even that is changing, and I'm watching with my own kids who are going to school. One finished, one starting now, and a lot of their programs consist of an online or remote portion. I think it's fantastic, personally.
There's a lot of good that comes from it, and there's also a lot of bad, too. I would have been in my third year of university when COVID hit, so that was a weird reset. And it exposed universities to the point where if they couldn't go to online, they would die, basically, right? Or that program or portion would die. So I seen, even after COVID, a lot of the classes in my last... I would say my last year, I guess, not calendar year, but my last couple semesters, a lot of classes were still online, still offered that way. Because, you know, the professor, I had one professor, he's very, very high renowned in the CPA world. He lives in, I think it's Los Cabos, right? Comes back for a few months a year, does some in-person sessions, and then goes right back to the beach. He calls himself semi-retired, and I think he works 40-hour weeks. So
it can be done. We've proven it can be done. There's a lot of conversations going on right now between companies asking basically people to come back to the office. And there's other companies that are still staying with the, you know, part-time remote, couple days from home a week kind of stuff. And everyone's got different reasons, whether it's lost productivity, they want people back to work, or they want people to stay away for either employee retention or satisfaction, all this kind of stuff. What do you think about these kind of issues as you're coming into your career just now?
I think it really depends. You need to be in office. I would say a couple days a week for sure, and especially the mid-brunt. Really important thing to do is to pick a day during the week, let's say a Tuesday or a Wednesday, something that's midweek where people are supposed to be working, right? It's hard to do on a Monday or a Friday because some people take time off, some people are on holidays, there's all types of stuff, right? But if you can set up weekly meetings, you know, Tuesday at 10 a.m., right, to make sure people are there in office, that gives them a couple hours to prep for the meeting in the morning as well as the day before, right? But it's very important, and even if there's nothing directly to meet about, that could be just a check-in for your employees, right? Everyone's catching up, seeing how your week was, how are you doing emotionally, right? And it's not going to get into the nitty-gritty of things, but just that little bit of, I feel supported here, or I know people want to see genuinely how I'm doing and see my face, see me coming into the office. That's important, right?
I think so.
And I've worked in a couple companies where it's different locations for the same company, but ran completely differently, right? And once you can get through that first year, or just show that you're doing what needs to be done, some people don't show up in the office at all. They're almost ghosts. And it's just because the company's so big, you're a number, and as long as you do your work, they're not going to watch the minuscule stuff.
No, for sure. Yeah, some people just like to see bums in seats for some reason. And I think there's pros and cons of both, but it's definitely moving forward.
There's a lot of value in it.
I think so too. I think hybrid work life is probably going to be the norm more than anything moving forward.
Yep. Yeah. I think it gives companies to, especially in an industry where people are in and out of the field or in and out of the office because of appointments. If you have a bunch of appointments downtown, right, meeting with clients, whatever it is, or you're spending 6 hours of your day on an audit, why do I need to come back downtown, pay for parking, right? Whatever it is, park your car at the C train station, ride in, right? Chew up time in your own day just to get back downtown. Just go home when you're done and keep working, because if you're on something like an audit that's extremely busy
and time sensitive,
you're going to be working anyway, right? So that's not the issue. But then there's the flip side, right? My mom, she works for AHS, and they're almost all online, most apartments, and that's one of it's to cut down on costs. It's really, really good, but on the same token, she's not getting the same exposure to people on the day-to-day, right? Which I think is really important.
For sure.
Right? It's just good to have that communal space, I guess, right? So it's something that sits in the back of my mind, and I do a lot of that with Movember. Not saying that's her issue at all. I think she handles it extremely well, better than most, better than myself for sure. But it's isolation, right? So many men deal with isolation, and women do too, but we're the first to jump on it all the time. So it just gives you one more avenue to do it and almost feel okay about it. And depending on your mental state, it can be positive or negative on the experience you're having.
Right on. So how did you get involved with the Movember group?
I got a really good buddy named Mike, and Mike did it one year. This was, 2022, I think, and he shaved his beard and posted a photo in our group chat with a link to his Movember, and he said, "Hey boys, I'm doing Movember this year. I'd really like it if you donated to my campaign." So I was like, what's Movember? So I jumped on it, and this is when their marketing started stepping up quite a bit too. So I jumped online and just checked it out, seen what they supported, and they're supporting all different types of men's health programs. The big ones are prostate cancer, testicular cancer, mental health is huge, and just community and emotional support systems. So that's where I focus most of my time with them. But it kind of grew from there. Just going back to 2022 as my first year doing it, I decided to link $1 per push-up for each dollar donated.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really good. I did, I think, 1,200, 1,500 push-ups that first year in the month of November. Yeah, so that was fun. And then the following year after that, I did over 2,000. And then this year, I almost hit 3,000. I was just over 2,800.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it, man. And the big thing for me is I got two good buddies on the business development team, on their fundraising team, and they treat me. We're more than just a professional relationship. We're friends. When they come to town, we try to catch a hockey game, try to hang out. I introduce my friends to them.
Awesome.
They treat me really good. And on the same token, they ask me to do stuff for them, right? Like, there was a panel that was speaking on men's health here in October, and we had Don was one of our higher ups. He had was Don's role more or less. He's a psychologist on the island, so Don was very educated, and a lot of his clinic and his practice is around men's isolation and men's health, and just dealing with community space and the impacts of others. And Don's a very interesting man. And then the other gentleman gave kind of a talk on cancer. So I figured I'd do mine on mental health, right?
Right on.
So I focused on just my own experiences and isolation and just what I was willing to talk about. But, they reached out and they asked me to give them a hand. They needed another guy on the panel, and I was more than happy to do it. I was a little bit nervous at first because it's a room full of 30 people you don't know, and
For sure.
you're trying not to get emotional in front of them. But on the same token, the thing with Movember is all the events I show up to, it's good people.
Agreed.
Really good people. I don't mind, making myself a little bit more vulnerable. I've been working on that. If it's going to benefit others. And it really did that day. I made a lot of good relationships there. And I think I left people with an impactful message, and that's what was important to me going into it. And I walked away that way, so I was really happy about that.
No, it's good for me to hear this from a younger guy like yourself talking about, mental health, because we know there's issues out there. We have statistics to support the issues with men's mental health in particular. And it's good for me to hear that you're part of that next generation coming up, potentially into our industry, that is making this conversation more normal. And it was just as simple as your friend posting a thing for some. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and he's a man's man, more or less. Some people take that term the wrong way. When I say a man's man, I mean they constantly put others before themselves, right? And a lot of times that comes with bottling up your own emotions and dealing with your own challenges and struggles on your own. But it's just constantly being there for others and paving a path for others to follow. And he does that exceptionally well. Shout out Mike. Mike works for KPMG, and he's an awesome, awesome individual.
That's great.
Very inspiring, works hard in everything he does. And rather than getting emotional, he's that guy that always cracks a joke, gives you a hard time. He loves doing it to me because he knows I can take it, and I've no shortage of giving it back, right? So me and Mike are very similar that way, and I got featured in an article with Movember this year. That was one of the things I talked about, is just our similarities and, suffering in silence, I guess you could say.
Was that the barbershop thing I read on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Okay.
you betcha, yeah. And that was in the bottom of your building, actually.
Yeah,
at,
Small World.
7 Barbers, yeah. Yeah.
So how does close friendships and relationships fit into this mental health conversation?
It's a good question. Really good question. Let's put it this way. I gave this huge chat and got a little bit of, a lot of emotions I was trying to calm and deal with while talking to 30 people that I necessarily didn't know. A couple in the room who I brought there who were free that night, but most of them just strangers, right? My dad and I have never had that chat, right? My grandfather and I never had that chat. A lot of uncles, not really. You see what I'm getting at,
sure.
right? And it's tough sometimes because most of the time in my life I've been viewed as a person who helps others, I think, and doesn't need the help. So when I fall down or I face struggles where I do, I find it really hard to ask for it. And the other thing that's really difficult is I think I see it in others, they don't know how to approach it, right? It's like you have a daughter, right? And she's graduating this year, you were saying?
Yeah.
How hard would that be for you to, as a person of somebody who's to support her and look up to her and keep her safe, right? If she had to feel like she needed to help and support you, that's really difficult, I imagine, for you, right?
Oh, for sure.
Right? Just because you always want to be that strong father figure, but dad needs help too sometimes, right? So I think it's really difficult for my family sometimes to recognize it and know what I need. Patty's somebody who does it exceptionally well because she knows that a few resources and just reassurance that you can do this is all I need. I know it's in here, but just to have that in a very light, gentle touch, that's it. Goes a long ways.
And like I said, I don't really know her like you know her, but I met her through Tiffany Scott, and
You guys are still...
I can see Patty's a special person for sure.
Well, Tough Talk, right? Like that whole initiative just focuses on people doing this, right?
For sure. It's literally, Tiff was the one who reached out originally, and they lost to someone very close to them, and And she said, it gets to the point, like, this keeps happening over and over again. Like, what the hell? She goes, I don't know what to do.
Stats
but
are
she goes,
high.
I want to do something. So she just started, she got together with Patty and Dustin and Jamie, and they reached out to be part of the conversation. And I think it's still kind of growing what it looks like, but they're very vocal about rather do nothing, they want to do something. And if something is as simple as talking about it, promoting a conversation, promoting other organizations that are doing it,
Yep.
promoting stuff on social media, even if it's just positive stuff, that's something better than nothing. So that's where they're at right now, but a really wonderful group of people, and I'm glad to be part of it, for sure.
Yeah, you should be, man. I know they lean on you huge, too, because you're not afraid to speak out about it. You really do a good job with it.
And the only reason I even started for the same reason, like I keep seeing, so it's all I've ever done is work pipeline.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up in it. So you start to see these people, you hear about them dying, and then all of a sudden, these pipeliners, and all of a sudden it's on your jobs and in your companies and in your crew, and I was like, holy shit, this is getting closer and closer to home. And I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
For sure, have bad days. I'm the first one to say speak up, talk, put up your hand, all this stuff, but I'm not an idiot. Like, it's hard to do. Like, I find it hard to do too, but I thought, you know what, shit, man, I'll just start talking about it, and if it makes people more comfortable, that maybe they can reach out to me about, hey, I don't know David, but I bet you he's a safe spot to reach out to. That's why I do it. So I hope
For
it
sure.
leads somewhere good, for sure.
Well, and I think it means a lot coming from guys like yourself that are, work in a very blue-collared industry, right? You might have, part-time in the office now, especially when projects are slow. But it's just having that more of a grit to your polish kind of thing when you guys are talking about it. That's important, right? I was somebody growing up where I didn't talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was a lock safe. There's a lot of people to this day that have no idea, what you were going through as a kid. And still, I still struggle with it big time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting better at, if I'm going to open myself up a little bit, maybe I can help my buddy do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get through this time together, right? Or I can help him feel that he's not alone. Because I think so many of us men, we think our situation is just we're so alone and nobody else has ever gone through this. You start talking to a room full of guys and they've all gone through something similar in a completely different fashion, right? Or in your mind, it might even be worse. And you start realizing, like, not that I'm not special, but I'm not alone in this. I battle stuff, he battles stuff, right? And a little bit of compassion goes a long ways, man. I've made some friends through just respect, right? Just because I respected them opening up or respected the challenge that they were going through. And rather than egging on them, right, was the first guy to call him a good dude or check in on him. And now we're buddies through that. It goes a long ways. Men are simple creatures. And that little bit of friendly support, or a guy gives you a hard time in a good way and shoots you a smile, goes a long ways.
Oh, for sure. And that's why I'd like to see a guy like you part of this industry doing, because you know what? It's such a special, close-knit community. And once you're part of it for life. Because I've talked to people who aren't pipeliners anymore. They went on to do other stuff. Someone into real estate, someone to grief counseling. But, man, they've all said the same thing. Once you're a pipeliner and part of that community, it's like for life.
Yeah.
I think you'd really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, and they all understand the same struggles, right? And at the end of the day, you're bettering our world. You're bettering Canada, right? Anytime I can get involved in something that ups our GDP, I think we're a nation that thrives on that. And right now, we've been sitting in the cellar. It's been a slow decline per capita, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our people. We should, all of our social programs should be rich and full in a surplus to be able to support those that need it, and we should have an abundance of jobs with the amount of resources and regulations we have to protect them. And it's something that it'll change. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take Canadians to stand up, right?
For sure.
We all fight the good fight, and the thing about Canadians is, we're warm, we're polite, and we care about our neighbors. And the more of those people that join together, the better this country is going to be.
No, I hope so. So what are you looking for work right now? Like, what would you walk into?
Really ideally, in the full sense?
Yeah.
I think a guy I'd really like to reach out to actually is Kirk, right? Kirk works in business development for, I believe it's Intervest.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's on the emissions side of things, I believe.
Okay.
which is really, really interesting to me. But business development, you got to take time to grow into that, to really do it and do it well. You got to know an industry well. You got to have connections, like you said, within the world or industry you're playing in. Goes a long ways. For me right now, with my background, I want to get into project management.
Okay.
And in order to do that, I think a coordinating position is really important.
For sure.
Project costing, estimating, anything like that. I'm very well with budgeting. I got a good background in it. I care about it, and I think it really can make or break a project, right? Like you look at the Green Line right now with the C train, that got put on hold right away as soon as they seen the actual budget come out.
I know, it's
right?
crazy.
I think it got doubled or even more, right? And
Talks about the importance of a good estimate to begin
absolutely, right? And it's just really understanding where things can go wrong. And understanding what makes a good key performance indicator, right? A good KPI that's going to relate to the day-to-day and could very well change your books, right? We were doing a job out in Pritis. We were building a nice home out there. And the thing is when we bidded the job, concrete was, I can't remember what it was, but per cubic meter it was X, Y, and Z, and then it doubled when we went to pour it. So now we're plugging and playing and trying to figure out, well, how do we fix this budget, right? And the concrete budget was well over $100,000 to begin with. So now you're trying to figure out, well, you know, there's all this extra labor time. Where can we plunk this, right? Where can we make up our time more or less? It's important to set your contracts up for that too, right? You want your construction agreements to allow you to reallocate costs, right? Because as long as the final number is under its threshold, that's what you want. The people you're doing the work for might push back on it a little bit, but as long as you're doing everything legally, right, and your costs are actually job costs, there's no worries with that, right? Some areas are going to take longer than others. Some things are going to come in that aren't accounted for, right? You need to know your contingencies really well. And that's just experience sometimes, but also listening to people, right? When you have your drywallers come in and you ask them what it's going to cost, you know, you go out and you get another quote, and then you're starting to understand, okay, well, where could the variance be here?
For sure.
I find demolition's a funny one because some people want to quote it on time, right? When it should be surface area and how much you're pulling apart, right? You want to quote things based on cubic feet, right? You don't want to just quote things on a time estimate for labor because that goes out the window pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate you wanting to go to the field, and that's, if I had any bit of advice for you, it would be get your ass to the field in whatever role you can. Because once you get out in the field, you start to understand it. The credibility goes up. It's like, oh, Dune? Oh, yeah, everyone knows Dune. Yeah, he's a good off his hands, a good pilot. And they start dragging you around from job to job. And then from there, you can just, now that you've had that field experience, to bring that back into the office, it's invaluable, Dune.
I agree. And like you have so much more appreciation for the guys that are out in the cold, right? It goes a long ways. I was actually talking to a nice lady the other day. She manages at a restaurant, and it was her duties were slower one night, but they had one of their dishwashers quit mid-shift or didn't show up something. And at the end of the night, you know, here's a pretty gal in a nice white dress, and she's washing dishes as the manager. But you know how much that says to the rest of your cooking staff?
Well,
everybody on the line is going to love you because you don't think that you're here to anybody else, right? You're willing to crawl in the sewer. And that's important, right? Because it makes that dishwasher feel so much better and everyone else around you.
Oh, man, lead by example. I remember we were bidding a job. It was 2012. And the director, again, you're up the food chain a little bit, and I was just an estimator, and we're putting together the binders, and it was like 2 a.m. just trying to get them in for the next morning. And I remember he was there. He had his tie on, his sleeves were rolled up, and he was right there in the trenches with us. And I'll never forget it. Bob Marshall. I'll never forget it. But again, lead by example. These are special people for sure.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. You can't ask people to work the late hours or work over the weekend when you're going to go and enjoy your time doing whatever, right? That's just not fair. I think if you truly want people to follow you, you need to do that as well. If it's a tough time where you got to roll up your sleeves and get into the action, then that's what it is, whether that's in the white-collar or blue-collared world, right? If you're asking people to work overtime or work late, so are you.
I know. That's important to leadership. I'm sitting down with a guy named Dave Irvin, I don't know if we got a date yet, but that's his whole career is talking about leadership. And I listened to him facilitate a meeting we had a couple days ago at work, and I was blown away by it. Such a soft-spoken guy, but he facilitated a conversation, but he kept asking such poignant questions. I'm like, man, I want to talk to this guy. And I reached out to him, hey, would you sit down and do a podcast and talk a little bit about leadership with me? He's like, absolutely.
Yeah.
He said it's so important.
We call that managing up.
Oh, it's across industries. It doesn't matter about your titles. Like, it's such a unique skill set that some people seem to be blessed with and other people can learn.
For sure. Yeah. I think compassion, right, is the big thing, and always put yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? Try to understand their role or their position. So I was a financial controller for a home builder there. I took that contract and a lot of good experiences. And the odd day I got into the field, we were missing guys on a weekend one time, right around Stampede, and we were putting together a Pilates studio for a client. All of our, all the construction work was done, all the mechanical was done, the plumbing, all the finishing was just being finished, like the cabinets and the mirrors were putting up. And I was in there for the glass work and the mirrors. And then a Saturday rolled around, and we didn't have the boys necessary to put together the Pilates machines, right? Kind of Friday, Saturday, just right before they wanted to open. And they really wanted to do a grand opening during Stampede, just because, I think they wanted just a little bit of flash and awe kind of thing. Anyway, I was like, yeah, I can figure these out. So I went in there, checked out the manual of how to throw these things together, and me and a crew of guys did it, right? And that was important. Like, the client after gave me a huge hug, and the guy that manages his financials and the budget for his project is also the one putting his Pilates machines together, right?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and he was awesome and so thankful, right? Husband and wife combo, like, that industry, that company, like, they love it, right? Obviously, that's kind of their baby, more or less. So to see somebody else take care of it, they really appreciate that.
For sure. What kind of, getting back to this, you said some of the people that have kind of helped you so far. Have you had the opportunity to turn around and help some younger guys? Because I call you a young guy, but you're not a kid anymore. Have you had the chance to kind of help some other kids coming up behind you?
I try to do my best. Obviously, I start with my younger cousins. They're like little brothers to me. Same with the females. They're like little sisters too, but different relationship, right? The little bros are ones I look after, and they're off and trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, and it's just, I'm in a position now where I'm still doing the same thing. Yeah. But it's taking a deep breath and finding good people is huge. If you find somebody good to work for, like you've told me, you got to hold on to that, right?
Oh man, and find a mentor, whether it's an informal or informal program. It'll I don't want to say it'll make or break your career, but it'll make such a difference. It's hard to even quantify it sometimes.
I completely agree. I found myself mentor starved there for a while. Just nobody really taking an interest on you and under your wing, and seeing you for all the great things, because anyone can learn the technical sometimes if it's what they truly want to do, but seeing all the intangibles that you bring to the table, a good mentor will see those things and really want to make you shine, right?
For sure, and they're able to flush those things out, and that's part of the problem with people finding jobs nowadays. There's a lot of great traits, and sometimes we're having trouble. How do you put care and compassion onto a resume? Yeah. It's really hard, dude. People only can discuss hard skills, but there's so much more to a person than what those hard skills are on a resume.
And I try to show as much as I can through Movember, because I do really care about it, and I give back as much as I can. Some people think that it's only for men because it focuses on men's health, but as you know, you go home to a family every night, right? When David's healthy, the family's healthier. Right? For and sure. It's no different than the mother, right? Nobody wants their mom to be sick. And I focus on getting as many females to our events as possible, because most of them, whether it's their dad or their uncle or brother or boyfriend, they have a very solid relationship or need to have a solid relationship with a man in their life, right? And that has nothing to do with independence. We're creatures of community, right?
For sure.
It's important, and I try to stress that to women a lot, especially as they grow up, that, at some point, especially for the women that their dads, they no longer have a wife or whatever the story is, he's probably pretty lonely. And you're the softer sense and softer touch that he looks forward to, right? Like, you're the one that he's looking for a hug from. It's not his friends. He's probably not getting that, right? You're the one, right? You're the one he looks forward to discussing things with. And if nobody can get him into an emotional state, like, it means so much if a daughter can do it, right?
No, absolutely.
Or for a boyfriend, like, being able to lean on their girlfriend on things that are emotional, that's where, like, the true relationship colors really shine, right? And whether or not it's going to last long term.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because, I'm talking about you trying to come into an industry where, relationship challenges, it's not uncommon, and it's really tough on relationships in this industry just because spend so much time apart,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really knowing one another and aligning your visions for life, right? Like right now, I'm currently single, but aligning your vision for life is huge. And I had the fortune of officiating my cousin's wedding, 2023. They got married. They're lovely. They're awesome. And their visions for life are aligned. What they want in life. They're having a baby here in February, so we're super excited for that. I can't wait. I know I'm just a cousin, but I'll technically be an uncle in my heart. So.
Right on, Funkle.
Yeah, exactly. That's what she called me too. Yeah, which is awesome, right? I'm so happy and excited for them. And you've watched marriage kind of shift, and the numbers are dying, but also the age that people are getting married is also shifting to much higher, right? And I've got a couples in my life that are very important people to me, and you love them dearly, and they got married young, early 20s. I was the best man at my best friend's wedding this summer. That was really cool. Him and his wife got married, and they're awesome people, crushing it in their careers, but their vision for life is aligned and what they want for a family, right? Those things are all coming together, and I watch both of their happiness and performance together because that's what they want.
I know, yeah, people do get married a lot later, and there's no right or wrong. Like, we got married pretty young, but I always like to think we kind of grew together.
Yep.
Unfortunately, not a lot of people can get through it in this industry, so I feel very fortunate that I do have Sweet Marie at home, because in spite of myself, she's kind of toughed it out with me, and we're still hanging in anyway.
Absolutely, and it's more than that, right? I see how much love you bring into just every day, and how calm you are, and how appreciative you are of the people around you. A good sense of that has to come from your woman in some point, right?
Oh, for sure.
Not to credit her too much.
No, she's one of those people. She's so quiet and an introverted type.
Yeah.
But yeah, those people, once you can get to know them, you realize even though they're quiet, they don't show it in their expressions and their emotions sometimes. They're the ones that love the hardest, for sure.
Well, sneaky funny, I bet, too, right?
Yeah. Oh,
they hide
for
the
sure.
jokes. They're good.
No, she's a funny kid.
That's
anyway,
awesome.
I'm getting off track. Anyway, Dune, I appreciate you sitting down with me. It does mean a lot to me. Yeah. And now that we're connected, we will stay in touch. And I'm hoping, like I said, if you're open to it, let's drag you into this pipeline family, because I think it's a very, very special place to be and a special place to call home. Absolutely.
My family is built on oil and gas in a lot of ways. So is the country, so is this province. It's something I truly believe in. I was a part of Young Canadian Resources for a while, which is a group that focuses on young professionals and those in university, like young students. And rather than posting this agenda of, stopping oil and gas and stopping industries from flourishing, they do the exact opposite, right? They provide so many jobs, they grow the economy. With all the environmental scientists that are out there now, this provides them an opportunity to work, focus on reclamation, right, and making our world better bit by bit, while allowing industries to grow. So I'm so happy to be here today, man. I'm very thankful for it, and looking forward to the next one.
Right on, brother.
Cheers, bro. Thank you.